Correct.
Yeah. You maybe, but I'm not. I think I'm. All right, does everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'd like to call the September 28th, 2020 Village of Lake Park Park and Recreation meeting to order. Start out with public comments. We have one guest with us in the room this evening. Any public comment, Judy? No? Okay. There were no public comments emailed into us, so there are no public comments. Sheree did send out the minutes from our last month meeting last week. Everybody should have received that. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
This is Will. I make a motion.
Okay, Will has made the motion. Is there a second?
Jeremy will second.
Jeremy has seconded. All those in favor signify by stating your name and A or nay, starting with Jeremy.
Jeremy, yes.
Joe?
Will, yes.
Oh, Will, okay.
Joe,
Julian, yes.
Julian?
And Joe, yes.
Julian, yes.
Okay. The minutes have been approved. I have two changes to add to the agenda. Under 11 facilities, I would like to add item number E, clock tower fountain. And under 12, I would like to add F, conifer / mimosa walkway. Are there any other requested changes to the agenda for this evening?
Yes.
Angie has a request.
Under events, I would like to add C, helper app.
Helper app.
Yes.
Okay, any other requested changes? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Jeremy will make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Is there a second?
Julian, second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by stating your name and A or nay. Again, let's start with Will.
Will, yay.
Jeremy,
Jeremy, yay.
Julian,
Julian, yay.
Joe.
Joe, yay.
The agenda has been approved. Okay, moving on to council actions. This happened after our last Park and Rec meeting that the wading pool pump went out. And so we took it directly to council. CPM has already made the repairs to the wading pool pump and approved the $1,200 under pool maintenance and repairs. There were no other actions from council. I did send out, or Sheree did send out the detailed budget report. This is a quick summary of that report. Again, we're still pretty much into the year. Most of our expenses have been with contracts for maintenance from Lucas or from Foster Lake and Pond, as well as some pool contract. We have not had too many other expenses to date. Are there any questions about the budget? Okay. Move on to events. Angie, you have the floor.
Okay, the American Red Cross Blood Drive was a success. Out of 28 appointments, we had 17 donors that qualified and they collected 16 viable pints. They were super ecstatic with our turnout and the amount of viable pints that they were able to collect. So between American Red Cross and One Blood, we've had two very successful blood drives for the community. We would need to wait about another 30 days before we plan anything else, and that gets us into the holiday season. So I think take a break from the blood drives for a little bit and maybe revisit that in January kind of thing. But they were super ecstatic. Will helped me with opening the building. I had something come up with my kid and it seemed to be super seamless. So I was ecstatic to hear that the drive ran so seamless and that there was no issues that came up. Right, Will?
That is correct.
Alrighty, so again, I think January will be the earliest I'm looking at hosting any additional blood drives. Red Cross and One Blood are reaching out to us for November, December. Comments?
I would agree with,
How did that compare to, One Blood was a little more successful? Is that what I remember correct, Angie?
Yeah, One Blood was like 64. I'll tell you the difference. One Blood advertises like crazy. American Red Cross depends on good old fashioned telemarketing. So you literally have to reach someone on the phone to qualify for an appointment or to confirm your appointment. One Blood will just be like, it's a one for all, just come on. So that's the difference in the two different drives that we've held. One Blood successfully reached out to so many, they had to bring 2 buses, whereas the American Red Cross only brought 1. But out of the 1 they brought, they did 99% of their donors. So it's half done, 1 fix the other kind of thing.
Pretty good. Sure. Yeah. Good job.
I personally like One Blood better because they do it for the town. They do everything for us. They market, they advertise. We did nothing. The American Red Cross, I had to tell them, we are not available. You've got to create your own volunteers. And the rep switched halfway through for us. I was confirmed with 1 rep, and 2 weeks before the blood drive, I had a new person to contact, and it's just a lot of turnover. So if we do another one, I would like to reach out to One Blood versus ARC.
Sure.
That's just my 2 cents. Christmas tree lighting, you guys got to decide which tree you want to light.
well, I think the first question is, are we going to have a Christmas tree lighting ceremony?
Well, I don't know that we could do a all-out ceremony with crafts and everything, but I think we should have something for Christmas for the community. A choir, I don't know that I could get a choir, a soloist, a guitarist, something, and just have something to where kids, we don't know until the governor says whatever the next phase we are in, but I think we need to have something if literally, if it's just turning on the tree.
Yeah.
Which tree are we doing?
Well, the last 2 years, we've done the smaller tree up by the community center. Prior to that, we were doing the big tree over on Meeting Street, and having our ceremonies in the gazebo. Does anybody have a preference? Angie, do you have a preference?
If we are going to do, this is my conundrum. If we are going to do the tree at Meeting Street, the park itself is super dark. To illuminate that park, we would have to rent those light towers like you see at construction sites, or like we used to rent for the swim team, which run on a generator. So you're creating another level of noise to illuminate that park. So maybe we just do 2 and light up certain areas. Otherwise, it all comes back over here to the community center, and we work with the illumination from the porch, the street lights, the Christmas lights we put on, the crepe myrtles right here at Lake Park Road. I think we could turn on the pool lights and illuminate that field at the end of the community center, right beside the tennis courts, and maybe have something there. So I think between the pool lights that we just put up might create a safer place for kids to run around and play and that, but I know it's all about the tree.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna illuminate that cedar at Meeting Street, we've got to add some more lights to it to make it brighter. Maybe. I would just request that we add more lights to it to make it a little brighter.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I personally think it's a little more small townish to get it moved up towards the community center somewhere. And the aesthetics of that tree, as we've talked about in the past, also the one on Meeting Street is not all that great. That's just, again, my opinion, but I could be convinced either way.
Yeah. My only thought is that it probably will be a smaller group than we've had in the past because the HOA is not having carriage rides and the HOA is not providing cookies and hot chocolate like they've done in the past. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't perhaps do that. We'll probably know a little closer to the date what we can or cannot do. But I'm kind of inclined to keep it up here at the community center for this year. But again, I can be persuaded either way.
I'm in agreement with both of you. I would think that'd make it a little bit more quaint if it was by the community center.
Okay. So we'll keep it up here at the community center, light the tree that we've been lighting for the last couple of years. It's getting a little bigger, so it's look a little better. And the children's tree, yeah, we'll leave that up to the garden club. Last year, I think Park and Rec paid for a separate tree to have for the children's Christmas tree. Are there any objections to doing the same this year?
No, I think it's fine myself. It's Jeremy.
Okay.
No objections, Will.
If the garden club wants us to do that, then we will do that. We'll get that and put it up. I guess,
Can we do the garden club put lights on that, or can PNR just go ahead and put lights on that and be done with that whole situation?
the garden club did put lights on it, but if you want to coordinate with Maureen Hydale, I'm sure she would have no objections.
Okay,
So I'll leave that up to you. And I would say between now and our October meeting, Angie, if you want to do some kind of tentative planning for what we want to do, you can bring it to Park and Rec in October.
well, that's gonna depend on what the governor says.
I know.
Okay.
We should know by then.
Okay,
The governor is supposed to make another announcement next week, so we'll hopefully know more.
Maureen will be here in the morning, weather permitting, because we have a work day scheduled in the garden.
Yeah.
So, you will be here, you can be clarified then.
Yeah, well, you can work that out. Details can be worked out and presented to the October meeting. That should give us time. Moving on to the item that was added to events, Helper app, Angie.
okay, so I was solicited by a person that has a Helper app named Krista, and it basically helps you track and solicit your volunteers, create special teams programming, organizations outside of your community, like if we ever wanted to do another blood drive, anything for the breast cancer, anything for the Union County Animal Shelter, any opportunities that we as a community create throughout the year we can track and reach out to volunteers for. And then it will give you an overview for the year. Joe, I don't know if you've ever heard of this Helper app, so if you have, let me know. It is phenomenal. It helps you track name, phone number, address. It's a one-point location for contacting all of your volunteers everywhere. There is no charge to the actual volunteer for the per person that it uses. It's supported by iOS, Android, and the web. We can maintain the contacts, so we're not selling it to anybody. It's not going to go anywhere. It stays within our app. And I actually have a link I can send to you that she just sent to me this afternoon for you to review. However, the fee is $500 annually for our community because we have up to 150 unique volunteer addresses or emails or what have you that we would be signing up through the app. Anybody over 150, they kind of tier their different fees. It just gives us, again, I wish you had sent me the link a little bit faster so I could have sent it to you guys, but I'll send it to you guys tonight and you can look over and we can discuss again in October if you want. But I don't know if this would come out of what line item for the budget, but it would maybe move our volunteer recruitment into the 21st century and kind of maybe get some more people to volunteer.
Yeah.
Questions?
There is another app that a lot of people use, and I can't think of it right off the top of my head, for volunteers.
Sign Up Genius.
Sign Up Genius. How does this
Sign Up
compare?
Genius does not allow you to track or think your volunteers. Sign Up Genius is strictly just an email spreadsheet. It's not even a spreadsheet. It's simply a point of contact. As the event driver or coordinator, you would be able to track those people that signed up specifically for that event, but you would have to pre-advertise for any event you might ever have in the future. And then you would have to go back and research every event that you did to see, okay, well, this person participated in a chili cook-off event. Would they be interested in the spring cleanup event? So I've got to go back through the chili cook-off event, look up the spring event and see if anybody would want to participate, whereas Helper gives me one list to choose from. They have check boxes. They can pick. I'm interested in chili cook-off. They'll never contact me for cleanup. Don't want to do anything for animals. Would love to participate in Christmas. So the volunteer can choose by checkbox what they want to sign up for or participate for or be notified of that event coming up. Whereas Sign Up Genius is per event. You're literally creating a sign up for that specific event. And it's free, as long as we stay under a certain quote.
Mhm.
It was just spreadsheet. It was beautiful. She was right up my alley. We clicked like we were sisters from another mother. It was just beautiful. But it is expensive.
Yeah.
Has anybody else ever heard of it? Okay.
Yeah, if you could share that link, so maybe give us a little more feel for it. We can put it back on the agenda for October, and then in the meantime, we can maybe look at what budget line item we could pull it from if we wanted to.
Okay.
I mean, if it doesn't, the logical place to pull it from is events, but I don't know if your budget would accommodate that much. We might have to pull from park maintenance or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'd have to look at how many events. This year's kind of a weird because we've not had that much, but how many more can we
Yeah.
add? And then making it more cost effective, how much more does Lake Park want to reach out beyond Lake Park and participate in community events?
Mhm.
Do we want to do anything like that?
Yeah. And with most of our events being canceled for the rest of this year, maybe it's something we should just budget for next year, but let's take a look at it. And
Okay. And it does help us track for our teenagers that get community service hours. It logs them so they can show their group, whoever they participate with, they can provide proof of hours worked,
Okay.
abandoned.
No, it sounds like it has some good advantages, but let's take a little deeper look at it and bring it up at our next meeting. All right, let's move on to item number 8, Christmas lights. We have received a quote from Henry, who has done our lights for the last 3 or 4 years and was helping before that. His price to install the lights and take down the lights is $9,960. That does not include the lift rental, which would be twice from Sunbelt. Last year, it just came in a little bit under $700 for each time. So I put $1,500 in there for the lift. And Henry did not specifically state that he needed any additional lights or cords or anything like that, but just for to make sure we're covered, I've added in $1,000 for that, which brings a total for the Christmas lights to $12,460. I think in our budget, we have 13,000 something budgeted for the Christmas lights. This would have to go to council in October 13th, I think. Any questions or comments about the Christmas lights for this year? I will say we did, we did buy a bunch of extra lights in last year's budget. We had some money left over in our budget, so we did buy a fair number of LED lights so we could switch out some of our incandescent lights with LED lights this year. And I'm sorry, somebody had a comment. No comments. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve $12,460 for Christmas lights?
This is Will. I'll make a motion.
Will has made the motion. Is there a second?
Jeremy, I'll second.
Okay, Jeremy has seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving $12,460 for Christmas lights signify by stating your name and A or nay, starting with Will.
Will, yay.
Jeremy, aye.
Julian,
Julian, yes.
Joe.
And Joe, yes.
Okay, motion is carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 9, pool and tennis court lights. At our last meeting, we had a quote from Balcom Electric to install a 15, 30, 45, or 60-minute timer so that we could supplement the existing timer that's there, which can turn the lights on at dusk or a predetermined hour, and turn the lights off at a predetermined time. So for example, we could set the main timer to come on at dusk and shut off at 9 o'clock now during the school year, which is what we have agreed to limit the tennis court lights to. And then the supplementary timer would allow people to go up to the timer and punch in 30 minutes, for example, and have the lights come on for 30 minutes as long as it was within the master timer's time range. In our discussion at the last meeting, we had some requests to install that timer in the tennis court, and subsequently have received a quote from Balcom Electric for $1,397 to run the cable underground from the existing breaker box into the tennis court. Balcom wasn't quite sure how he would secure the panel in the tennis court, but I told him to hold off on that until we had a chance to discuss it this evening. Any thoughts on whether or not we want to go with the original breaker panel box or go with the remote box and or either one. What are your thoughts?
I'll go first. My thoughts are we need to do it, and I mean it's more money than I anticipated it being, but $900 more is 480 if we move it, put it outside, and it's $900 more, $917. Put it for the convenience, put it inside the tennis court. You don't have anybody doing anything crazy, going through a fence, over a fence, or down that back area to get over there to it. So I would vote for just moving forward with putting it inside there, in my opinion.
Okay. I think this would come out of the Park and Rec electrical budget, which is really Joe Scaldera's budget. I have not had a chance to talk to him about this, but Park and Rec does have the authority to approve that. Any other thoughts on that?
I agree with Jeremy. It's just the convenience, and I've seen the courts being used quite a bit, and to have the lights thrown out on you while you're at the court and try to make it back out, click it for another 30 minutes, it's just a huge hassle, inconvenience, and maybe potentially a safety concern as well. So yeah, I'd vote for in the tennis court as well.
Okay. Julian, any thoughts? Joe?
Julian, I'm in favor of in the tennis court.
Okay. The tennis courts have been getting a lot of use this summer and into the fall. Haven't seen a lot of people using it late in the evening, but I think the darker it gets, the earlier it gets, we're going to have more people that would be interested in using it. Is there a motion to approve Balcom Electric's quote for the remote timer in the tennis court for $1,397?
This is Will. I'll make a motion.
Okay, Will has made the motion. Is there a second?
This is Julian. I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
I will just tell you, Mayor, and I know it'll go to council anyway, but
Yes.
I had Joe ask me about it if I was aware of the quote, and I had got your email, and he did tell me he was in favor of doing it. So I don't think you'd have a problem with him from the budget
Okay.
perspective.
Great, that's good. Thank you. All right, all those in favor signify by stating your name and aye or nay. Will?
Will, aye.
Jeremy, aye.
Julian, aye.
And Joe, aye.
All right, motion is carried. All right, moving on to the playgrounds. This is information only, really. When we opened up the playgrounds, we decided to install some signs. Angie was nice enough to lay these out and get them ordered and actually get them installed. Thank you, Angie. Some of the surrounding municipalities have done similar signs. There's at least one municipality in Union County that decided not to put any signs out at all. But we thought this was probably a good thing to put out because we want to remind people to still social distance and, wear masks in the playground as much as possible. I mean, we're dealing with children, so it's not easy. But we also wanted to add the disclaimer at the bottom, use at your own risk. Going along with that, as part of our CARES funding, we were approved for some hand sanitizers, which have been installed in the community center. We also were approved for a fogger, which we have purchased, and it's a Steel SR 200 fogger. We have also purchased Max Clean disinfectant to go with that. So Union County Park and Rec did sanitize our playgrounds before we opened them up. And the sanitizer that they used is supposed to be a 90-day sanitizer. It's probably been about a month ago now since they did that. So probably sometime in the next month or so, we'll want to give this steel fogger a try. I don't know, has anybody ever used one? Are they familiar with them?
We do have one similar to that at work that we put out a certain pesticide with.
Yeah. Does it work pretty good?
It does. And we actually put out diatomaceous earth, if you're familiar with that. That's what
Yeah.
it creates a huge cloud. But yeah, when you were talking about it at the council meeting, I was envisioning an electric something to use indoor. But yeah, that's a good model there.
Yeah, the Marshville Park and Rec has one like this, same model, actually. They said they used it indoors, but I'm not sure we want to do that.
Sure.
The Max Clean disinfectant that we got can be used in a pump sprayer, so if we want to use it indoors, we can certainly do
Yeah.
that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to facilities, Jeremy, can you give us an update? Well, yeah, I'm jumping ahead of myself here. On rentals, at our last meeting, we decided not to do any rentals until after September 11th. I think we're kind of in still a state where we want to extend that. And we've been telling people that have called that we're not renting anything in the community center. We're not renting the gazebos, even though I think the governor said that we can now have up to 50 people in an outdoor event. Are there any thoughts on continuing no rentals, or any thoughts about opening special, I'd say maybe the outdoor gazebo at this point? Any interest in opening that up?
This is Will. My opinion is COVID-19 is still very active, so I would be for just keeping it as it is now and wait for further better conditions later on.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, I would say just continue to evaluate every month based on the state's guidelines. And
Okay. So we'll just leave it as is until our October meeting and address it again at that point. If
there
that's-
was recently, I think a group was down at the Meeting Street, the main area there. Did you see that, an event out there in the past couple weeks on the weekend?
Was it the one with the deputies driving by?
No, this was a wedding or something out there, I think.
Anything that's going on is being done, they're not renting or anything
Yeah.
for us.
And the question was raised was I thought you guys weren't renting it, and my answer was we're not. But if somebody goes out there to use it and they've got a crowd, I mean, there's really nothing we can do, right?
Yeah, it's a public park.
Right.
Unless they're in severe violation of the governor's orders,
Right.
I don't think we can
Yeah.
do anything at this point. But we are not sanctioning anything by renting.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
The only rental we have is we are the voting precinct. So for election day, they will be set up in the community room.
Everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on to item number B. Jeremy, do you want to give us an update where we stand on the work by Eddie?
Eddie's been paid, best of my knowledge. Of everything looked good. I do know there are some lights out at the pier. Cherie, did he or Angie, did he procure more lights from you guys?
Yes, he has 2 boxes, he has 50 bulbs in hand.
Okay.
Last last Friday when he picked up his check, I asked him about the lights and he said they were all burning. That he had replaced a couple more, so I don't know.
Okay. And it's been a week since I looked at them, but I counted some out more than I anticipated being out. I'll check that again this evening and be in touch with him. I just want to, if he didn't have lights, I was just going to tell you to leave me some. I'll go do it, but I will check them tonight and make sure.
Yeah, Jeremy,
He still needs to come fix this back door. I know he's been out of town and I will gladly call him again tomorrow morning. But our back door, where the glass is, does not shut on its own.
The main back door where they come in from the pool.
Yes. He is coming back to work on that plate.
Okay.
The screw prohibits the door from closing. Now,
Alright.
we have to see his short little face in here fixing that.
Jeremy, I wanted to ask you, are the lights down on the pier incandescent lights or are they LED lights?
They're old school. I'm pretty sure incandescent.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it would be worth our investment to switch them over to LEDs.
Likely so. Yeah.
Wouldn't have to worry about them burning out all the time.
They are LED.
Oh,
They're LED bulbs.
Angie says they are
Are
LED.
they- Okay. And I haven't climbed up there. I haven't actually held one in my hand. Just from afar, I would have thought it was an incandescent bulb.
Well, I would have
I
thought,
was surprised. I counted 12 lights out whenever I was over there last week. That's what surprised me.
if
But
they're
that
LED
would've-
lights, if they're LED lights, that surprises me too. And that's why I thought they were incandescent because they keep burning out.
Right.
No, they replaced them all. They're
Okay,
all new.
all right, just something to check on.
Yes, sir. We'll do it.
All right, thank you, Jeremy. All right, let's move on to facilities, so number C, or letter C, kiosk. Angie has been working on the corkboard in there and has used fabric paint on all the panels. Looks great. So I think we are finally, after about 3 years, done with the kiosk upgrade. And if you haven't been by
Yeah,
there,
good job. Looks really good.
looks good, yeah. So thank you, Angie, for all your work on that. Glad to be done. Huh? Okay. And thanks to Angie and Will for working on our swings. They look great. We have all 4 of the swings have been stained. Gotten a lot of positive feedback from the community on that. So again, thank you, Angie and Will, for that.
Good job picking those colors, Will. They look nice.
Yeah, came along nicely. Thank you.
Okay, we've added the clock tower fountain to the agenda. This is something that we've got some tentative pricing. As you're standing in the community center, the clock tower fountain to the left is not working. Carolina Pool Management was out and looked at them and gave us some ballpark pricing. They don't know exactly what the problem is, but they're saying if it's a breaker, it'd be $225. If it's a timer, it's $400. And if it's the pump motor, it would be $900. I personally thought the pricing was a little high, and I asked Balcom Electric to come out and take a look at it. And Jonathan Balcom was out here this afternoon. I was hoping when I drove up this evening, I would see the pump running, but it's not. So I don't know what he found, but I think we need to get that fixed. And so we know our worst case situation is that if it is the motor, it's going to be about $900. So I would entertain a motion to approve up to $900 to repair the clock tower fountain. That's the north fountain. We do have extra money in the fountain maintenance beyond the monthly maintenance that CPM does. There is an extra $1,000 in there to cover that. So is there a motion to approve the repairs to the clock tower fountain?
It's Jeremy, I'll make the
Well, I'll
motion.
make a motion.
Okay, Jeremy made the motion. Will, do you want a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion on that?
One question, Mayor, does that same pump run both sides or are they independent pumps?
No, they're independent. And there's
I've been,
separate,
yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
well, there's separate breakers and separate timers. You may have noticed that the fountain to the south was not running. They did suds that one a few days back. But CPM was out here to address that, and I did notice this evening that that fountain was working and was running. It had been off. I think the breaker might have tripped somewhere along the line.
I had noticed in the past few weeks, it did not look like it was erupting as high as it should. It was like barely coming over the wall. That's why I wondered if it was the same pump.
Oh, no, it's a separate pump.
Okay, that's the question I had.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by stating your name and aye or nay.
Will, aye.
Jeremy, aye.
Julian, I.
And Joe, I.
Okay, motion is carried. Thank you. We'll see what Balcom Electric's quote is and what he determined out there, and then we'll proceed either with Balcom or with CPM to get that fixed. Okay, moving on to landscaping. We've got a lot going on with landscaping right now. Of course, this is a busy time of year. Time to be planting trees and shrubs. But Angie and Will and I have all been busy going around looking for trees that are dying, shrubs that need to be pulled, and new trees that need to be planted, shrubs that need to be planted. So we've got a lot going on in this area. Last month, we approved repairing 8 locations where trees had been removed, and Lucas had given us a quote of $1,000, similar to the picture here on the screen. In rethinking that, 5 of those locations, 2 being in Founders Park, 2 being over on Bobby Lane, and 1 being down in the Hoover Queens Park. We actually want to replace the trees that were taken out. So it doesn't make any sense to have Lucas remove the excess mulch and seed and straw those areas because Lucas is charging about $125 per location, and we can get a brand new tree in there for $140. So it didn't make sense to have them repair those areas and then go back in and pay another $140 to plant trees. So I told Lucas to put a hold on that. They have already done 2 locations in the park here, but they have not done this one on Conifer, as you can see. What I've done is we'll go through this, you'll see that I've priced up trees for these additional 5 locations, but that will cut down on the money that we approved. This $1,000 will no longer be $1,000. It'll be more like $400 for that. Tree removal and stump grinding. We did identify, I think Shree was the first to spot this over on Sages Avenue. There are 4 plum trees along the street that are dead or dying. There's another one over on the Alden Walkway right next to Fabian Zarco's property that is dead and dying. And then there's a stump on the Mimosa cul-de-sac that needs to be ground down, and it would be a candidate for a tree replacement. So we got a quote several weeks ago from Kiker Tree Service to take care of these trees and stumps, and it came in at $850. So would entertain a motion to approve that work by Kiker Tree Service.
As well, I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Jeremy will make a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of having Kiker Tree Service remove these trees and grind stumps for $850, signify by stating your name and aye or nay.
Will, aye.
Jeremy, aye.
Julian, I.
Joe, I.
Okay, motion is carried. All right, this afternoon, I don't know if you got it or late this morning, I sent out a spreadsheet with all the various tree and shrub locations that we've been working on. It included those that had already been approved by Park and Rec at our last meeting, plus a large number of trees that still need to be removed, shrubs that need to be pulled, and then replacements. I got a generic quote from Lucas on tree and shrub replacement. For example, redbud, $140. Shrubs, $25 to $35, depending upon the type. So I didn't get a specific quote from Lucas for each individual location, but in my spreadsheet, I did summarize some of the areas that we've looked at and some of the replacements that I think we need to address. Did everybody get that? Did anybody have a chance to look at that spreadsheet?
Yes, sir. I got
Yes,
it.
as well.
And a lot of this is work that Angie had gone around and identified a lot of areas where we needed to address these, and then I followed up and Will followed up. So a lot of these locations that we've already looked at and identified. What my thought is here that we may have still missed a few locations where we need to replace trees or shrubs. And if you had a chance to look at the spreadsheet, it comes up to, I think, around $1,600 for tree and shrub replacements. That does not include an additional quote that we'll need to get from Kiker, but we'll bring that to the next meeting in October. So this would be strictly for new trees and new shrubs. Again, approximately $1,600. What I would like to suggest is that Park and Rec approve up to $2,000 for tree and shrub replacements, and that'll give us a little room to work with, and then we can take that to council before we proceed any further. Any thoughts on that? If not,
Sounds reasonable.
Okay, is there a motion to approve up to $2,000 for new trees and shrubs?
As well, I'll make a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
This is Julian, I second.
Okay, Julian seconded. Any further discussion?
Mayor, does that include the two dead knockout roses at the end of the community center? and the holly tree that looks so bad?
No, it does not. But that would give us some money to address that.
Because we need to look at those.
Okay. Yeah, we can probably get those knockout roses pulled out. I don't think there's be any cost for that, but if we're gonna replace that holly, we want to put in a pretty good sized holly. That may be, well, I think we can get we can get a 15-gallon holly for about $140. So, but we'll have to have, I could have Kiker quote taking that out and grinding that stump. So, but that, again, that $2,000 would cover that. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of approving up to $2,000 for tree and shrub replacements signify by stating your name and stating aye or nay.
Will, aye.
Jeremy, aye.
Joe, I.
Okay, motion is carried. Judy has a comment.
Question, Lucas, the town has been doing the pruning on the knockout roses in
Mhm.
the next garden.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what his time schedule is. I know they're still blooming and they will until probably the first frost, but we had discussed having him have them.
Yeah,
Is,
I'll be glad.
is this the time to do it?
Yeah, in fact, I was with Ron Andrews this morning, looking at some other areas, and we talked about, in some cases, we were going to remove some diseased knockout, but he,
There is one on this end next to the magnolia tree that needs to come out. I
Do-
cut as much off of it as I can.
does it have rosette?
No, it's just
Done.
dying.
Okay,
And I think the magnolia tree is shading it out. Or,
okay. Yeah, I'll talk to Ron about that.
thank you.
Yeah,
Hey, Mayor, similar situation, but different, not rose bushes. If I recall in the past, it may have been last year, year before, but Kiker came in and limbed up trees through the area. Is that a fall project or a spring project?
fall and winter is a good time for that. In fact, Sheree had mentioned that if we're going to be asking members of the community to limb up their trees over the sidewalks and stuff, that we as the village probably should address the trees along Conifer where buses and delivery trucks and so forth are hitting the trees. So if you'd like, I can certainly get a quote from Kiker to do that. Just as a comparison, probably 3 years ago, I got a quote from Lucas and one from Kiker to limb up along Conifer on the sidewalk side. And Kiker was less than half of what Lucas was quoting. So I'll probably just go with asking Kiker to get a quote for limbing up the street side of that.
Yeah,
Oh.
sure. There was a resident this week that sent me a message and it was from Conifer, so I'm sure it's delivery trucks like you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Conifer
So-
got hit real hard last week. I don't know if it's because the school buses are back out or if there was a moving truck, but all down between Faith Church Road and Lake Charles Way, there
Yeah,
were all kinds of limbs and things from the Bradford Pears on the
Right.
park side down.
sure.
okay, good, thank you. All right, well, let's move on to landscaping Lake Charles Pier. Oh, as we discussed at the last month's meeting, we have removed the river birches and a couple of the shrubs on each side. We really didn't decide whether we want to put in any replacements for the shrubs that we took out. Will has done a little work here and checked on Steve's holly as a possible replacement. Will, is this kind of your recommendation that we do put the Steve's holly in on each side, or what was your thought?
Yes. I think that there for as wide as is going to get in that area. It'll complement very well, and it's not going to get very big.
Okay. I'd gotten quotes from Lucas on Steeds Holly as part of their generic quote. They can do a 3-gallon for $25 or a 15-gallon for $140. What's your recommendation there? Will? Will, are you still there?
Yeah, here we go. I'd go with the 15-gallon just because it'll kind of fill in there a lot quicker. The 3-gallon will, for lack of a better word, take forever.
Right.
At 15, it will just already kind of blend with what's there. It will require water starting out. So if it's done here this fall, it will definitely be one that will require watering until it breaks out.
Okay. Speaking of watering, do you know how many times Lucas watered the other trees this summer?
I think they've only done one
Yeah.
one time.
I have not seen any invoice from them yet, so I'm not sure. I'm assuming.
I sent them an email to water that one time when you asked me about the timing,
Right.
and I told them to still go ahead with it. So I don't know if he was able to do it or not. I think he said he was going to.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't think we need a separate motion for this because that's just part of the $2,000 tree and shrub replacement. It's just a question of what we were going to put in here, 3-gallon or 15-gallon. So we'll go with the 15-gallon.
Yes, sir.
All right. Just wanted to mention that our planters downtown in the town center, Joe was kind enough to volunteer his employees at the Lake Park Cafe to water these planters this summer, and they've done a very good job. They've looked very nice throughout the summer, and I just wanted to thank Joe and his staff for doing that. It was a lot easier for me than carrying gallon jugs of water up there. So I appreciate that. Lastly, on landscaping, the item we added, number F, the conifer mimosa walkway. That was a quote from Lucas that I sent out to you again today, and apologize for the late notice on that. Angie had identified this area. If you're coming from Conifer, it's on the left-hand side of the walkway. There's a lot of limbs down. There's a lot of just brush in general that needs to be cleaned up along there. I did have a question, Angie, when you took a picture there, you took it from the bench down towards Mimosa. Were you thinking in just that area, or were you going all the way back to Conifer?
That was just an area in the midst there that there's a huge dead limb across the bottom, and I thought it just needs to be cleaned up. I think that's common area, and then that led into the bench.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of the area that I looked at when I asked Lucas to give us a quote for cleaning that up. And Lucas called me and asked, well, do you want the whole area down there cleaned up? And actually it's from Conifer all the way down to Mimosa, which is
Well, that runs into the cedar and the whole
yeah, but
ivy.
yeah, well, there's ivy on the other side, but his quote was $500. And at first I thought that was a little excessive, but I went back this afternoon and took another look, and that is a big area. If you go all the way from Conifer, pretty much all the way down to Mimosa to where the cedars are. So it really isn't that excessive. and it's probably pretty reasonable to clean that area up. Question is, do you want to go ahead and do that? It's probably been the way it is for a long time, but it is part of the common area, and really, yeah, it does look rough, and we, as the town, are responsible for keeping that clean.
As a walker of that area several times a month, I don't think it's looked that rough quite as long. I think the
Okay,
dead stuff has
gotten
just
worse.
accumulated. It's not being removed is why it's so prevalent and eye-catching now.
Yeah, I think if we got it cleaned up and then maintained it, it wouldn't be so bad to keep it up in the future, but any comments? Is anybody familiar with that area? This would
It
come
does
up.
look, this is where, it does look rough, so it does need some help.
Okay, is there a motion to approve $500 to get that area cleaned up?
This is Will, I'll make a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Jeremy will second.
Okay, we have a second. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the quote from Lucas Landscaping for $500 to clean the common area between Conifer and Mimosa, signify by stating your name and aye or nay.
Will, aye.
Jeremy, aye.
Julian, I.
Joe, I.
Motion is carried. All right, before we adjourn, are there any other items that anybody would like to bring up this evening?
This is Will. Two things. One is, so the other fountain at Russell Park, is something being done with that fountain that's not working?
The one closest to the community center?
Yeah.
That breaker trips, I reset it today. I've been resetting it maybe once a week. I'm not sure why that keeps tripping. It's a new breaker box, a new timer, new fountain. Several months back, it had tripped and I opened up the box and it was full of fire ants. I did spray for the fire ants. They have not come back. There's still a lot of dead fire ants in the box, but that should not be causing it to trip.
Okay.
So I don't have an answer for you why it keeps tripping.
No, I was walking around yesterday. I didn't notice it, that it was out. So, no, that was it.
Yeah, no, it seems to trip maybe once a week for some reason. We can have, I guess we could either have the Foster Pond Management people take a look at it. I don't know if they'll be able to diagnose it, or we could have Balcom Electric take a look at it when they're out this way. Something's not right. So,
Speaking of fountains, Mayor, that I'm sure you saw the recent Facebook thread about fountains. I saw that former council member Bowman mentioned that there was at some point a plan of adding other fountains, quote unquote, as money allowed. Is there a time frame, or was just a general discussion?
I think it was a general discussion. There was a push 6-7 years ago to add fountains to Veterans Pond. It got to be rather expensive because to really either to do any good down there as far as aeration or just a general appearance, it would take a fairly large fountain compared to what we've been putting in Russell Park and Connie's Pond. So we had the cost of a more expensive fountain, and then The other issue was there was no good way to get power to the fountains. So it turned out to be a rather expensive proposition, and it got dropped. There's been discussion just about every year about putting fountains in Lake Charles, putting fountains in Balsam Pond or Sages Pond, Garden Pond. And this year, we did not put any money in the budget for new fountains because, well, I'll take that back. There is money in the budget for a new fountain, but it's more from a maintenance standpoint in case one of the existing fountains fails.
Right, sure.
We did not put any additional money in there for new fountains because of the budget crunch that we had this year.
Right, yeah.
It's, I'd say if it's something we want to address next spring when we're putting our budget together, we can certainly take a look at that.
Yeah, I just
did
wondered,
you-
just curious.
I did not see that thread on social media, so I'm not sure which area that people were looking at or what their thoughts were.
There were just general comments, and Mr. Richards asked or tagged me and asked if Veterans Pond had ever had a fountain. He thought it had. I told him not to my knowledge, but I
No.
wasn't 100% sure.
No,
And that's when Kristen said that there was in previous years, there was in 2018, I think is what her comment was. It was slated to be added 2018, 2019. I just wasn't sure. I hadn't heard of that, so I just asked.
yeah, it was much earlier than that, and yeah, it got tabled because of cost.
Sure, understand.
So,
The maintenance items for two of your fountains is Connie's Pond Fountain and Far End Fountain in Russell Park next to
well, I talked to Foster Lake and Pond about changing the oil in the two fountains, one in Connie's Pond and the furthest one in Russell Park. Foster Lake and Pond did not recommend changing the oil because they say once you break that seal, you're probably going to cause more damage than just letting them run. So that's why we have not done it. Yeah. Question?
I'd just like to make a comment.
Yes.
I believe I was present at all those meetings during that time that these fountains were desired in that area. And it was my understanding that the necessity of the fountains initially was to prevent the fish kills for aeration for the
Yes.
fish. That most of our ponds are too shallow. And then there was a maintenance problem because we have the pumps that go out and the maintenance, how costly they become. So it is strictly for aesthetics that they want these fountains in. They serve no purpose other than somebody, they think they're pretty to look at. But we need to conserve electricity, not necessarily just for our budget, but for the world. Listen to David Attenborough, and I'm going green here. Why do this just so we can keep repairing mountains every year and spending hundreds of dollars?
Okay, duly noted.
That's
We'll,
my opinion.
yeah, we'll take it up next spring when we look at it under budgets, but I understand what you're saying, but
And don't get me wrong, I wasn't suggesting it. I was just asking.
no, and it's, personally, I'd be in favor of putting fountains in every pond, but
They're
now Judy has made me
I wrote
rethink
it up and wrote down, I pushed for it.
it. So, yeah, well, we'll discuss that again come budget time. So, okay. Anything else before we adjourn?
The second item I had was, in looking at the aeration that Lucas did, it was, especially over at Russell, this is really rough. You look at some of the grass and it's a lot of ruts, and I took a couple pictures of as they went across on the sidewalks, and it was just mud thrown all over the place. So this is the first time that I've seen it. That it was just it was not up to par. It was just super rough.
Yeah. Well, the good and the bad was they did it shortly after that fairly significant rain, which allowed them to get a good plug pulled out. But the bad part was it did leave a pretty good mess. On the trying to be positive about it, when I was out with Ron today from Lucas, the grass is starting to sprout. So hopefully some of those ruts will fill in and we'll start seeing some nice grass coming up. But yeah, it was done when the ground was a little too wet, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, we can't
It
go
was.
back. We can't go back and change that now. So
No, 1 or 2 more days later would have been
Yeah.
optimal. So
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about timing, that it just can't be, all right, we have it slated for Tuesday, but if they're not really looking that closely at the weather, that has most to do with it. So
Yeah.
that was just again, just an observation, just looking at years past and just seeing this one particular is like, wow, my gosh, it's just 4 or 5 inch deep ruts, just mud all over the sidewalks, and
yeah,
a couple of rains should soften it enough that it goes back down. But again, just timing, just an observation.
yeah. No, I agree with you and I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
Pardon me if this is an ignorant question. I'm still in my learning curve, but with Halloween right around the corner, is there anything that the town would like put out to everybody as like a recommendation, being that COVID is still something, or is that just left up to?
Well, Halloween has never been a town sanctioned event. Now that wouldn't preclude us, I guess, from putting out some precautionary information as far as observing distancing and that type of thing. But it appears from social media that a lot of the residents are planning to put out candy for trick-or-treaters. But did you have any suggestions of?
Well, I just didn't know if that was something that as a town, like to put out, like you had just kind of referenced, like possibly, if you're going to give out candy, maybe wear a mask, and maybe a glove or something like that. I mean, but you can't make anybody do anything, but just I think it's probably the right thing to do is.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with us putting out precautions. We can put it out on some of the town's unofficial social media. I don't know that we want to do an official broadcast from our e-blast, but certainly can put information out there. Because it is a concern. A lot of people are not going to hand out candy just for that reason. Yeah. Good suggestion. Okay. Thank you. Anything else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
Will, I'll make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Jeremy will second.
This is Julian. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, we have a second and a third. All those in favor signify by stating your name and aye or nay.
Will, I.
Jeremy, aye.
Julian, I.
And Joe, I.
Thank you, and the meeting